What would you do if you found out somebody had been secretly sleeping under your bed for months? I have a story about an absolute creep. So this story was actually uploaded to the AITA forum on Reddit. And this guy says that he'd been living with his roommate for a little under a year, and this roommate was called Carl. He said that him and Carl weren't really friends. They just were roommates together. They had a few acquaintances, a few shared groups, but Carl made him really uncomfortable and he really didn't like hanging out with Carl because Carl had been trying it on with him. Now, Carl was pan, and obviously there's nothing wrong with that, but the reason why he felt uncomfortable was because he'd always say to him, how would you feel about experimenting? And he'd be like, no, I'm only into girls. Like, I'm okay. Carl would always try and push and say, yeah, well, we'll see about that. That would make anybody feel uncomfortable. So anyway, one night, this guy's just chilling on his bed watching TV and he hears a noise coming from directly underneath his bed and it sounds like movement. He thinks it's a mouse, it's a rat, it's a massive spider. So he gets his phone and he just hangs underneath his bed. And that's when his jaw drops. He sees Carl, his roommate, underneath his bed, and Carl, now being caught, looks like a deer in headlights and just screeches, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. This guy is freaked out. He doesn't even ask any questions while Carl is pleading, his innocence, saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. This guy has just got out of his bed in his pajamas and just ran to the nearest Dunkin' Donuts, which is 24/7. And it's like 4 a.m. in the morning at this point. Like, it's not like 9 p.m. This happened dead center in the middle of the night. During this time, this guy is texting his friends, like hoping somebody is going to reply to him. But also during this time, Carl makes this whole situation even worse. Carl decides to come clean for some reason. Rather than being like, hey, I wanted to prank you and, I fell asleep under the bed. Carl actually says, I've been doing this for 4 to 5 months. I've been wanting to get closer to you. And by doing this, we can both physically saturate one another. Like, what does that mean? And also, Carl, keep your mouth shut because you are just digging yourself a deeper hole here, pal. This guy is having none of it. He does not want to listen to Carl. He does not want to hear any excuses. He just wants Carl to get out of that apartment so he can go in and move out because he never wants to see Carl face to face ever again. Carl is also doing something really, really cheeky during this time. I don't even know if cheeky is the right word. He's texting all of his friends and their acquaintances, basically saying that his roommate has shunned him and has, in a way, kind of not accepted him for being pan, which he's just completely lied about. So they're all texting this guy saying, like, you need to forgive Carl. Why are you not accepting his apologies? And this guy's like, are you all batshit? Carl has been under my bed doing God knows what for 4 to 5 months without telling me. In secret. Like, that isn't normal behavior. Like I said, this story was posted to the AITA forum on Reddit. So this guy's asking, am I a bad guy for leaving my apartment in the middle of the night and never seeing my roommate again? No, you're not the asshole. People did ask for an update. The update was he never did come face to face with Carl again. Luckily, there was only a month long left in their lease. And when Carl was at work, he went in and cleared his stuff out. So we don't know what Carl's doing now. If you've got a roommate called Carl, that's pan. Maybe do some checks. Maybe check under your bed as well. But stories like this just creep me out. Why are there people out there that put themselves in spaces where they shouldn't be? It doesn't make sense to me. So anyway, that's a little story of an absolute creep. If you've got a story about a creep, let us know. Maybe check under your bed before you go to bed tonight.
He slept with that beat-up mannequin head every night. Story time. I told y'all I used to get babysat by this woman named Miss K who lived with her adult son. Miss K's son, Jay, was a creeper, and he used to do the weirdest stuff, and sometimes he would involve us kids in these weird plots. One day, they got a new refrigerator. It came in a big, giant cardboard box, and instead of throwing that box away, Miss K gave it to us kids to play with out in the yard. Kids were about to cut holes in this cardboard box and start making a spaceship or something, a little clubhouse, I don't know. But that's when Jay walks up and says, no, don't cut it, I have an idea. So Jay takes the box and flips it on its side, cuts the top off of it, and tells us, I want one of y'all to lay down in it. So one of the little girls gets in it and lays down, and then he puts her hands on her chest like a dead person. And Jay looks at us and says, we're gonna play funeral. Who wants to be dead next? When I tell y'all, I took off running to go get Miss K because I just knew this man was gonna kill us. I was such a snitch. Like, Miss K, Jay's out here doing this. Miss K, Jay's got this little girl. Like, I was always tattling. But I was so scared of him, especially because he walked around with that damn mannequin head. Well, I told y'all he used to sleep with this beat up mannequin head, and he would draw like fake blood and stuff on her face. Or at least I thought it was fake. He used to have teeth under the lips, like she had these big teeth, but then one day he cut a big hole out of her mouth. God only knows what he was doing with that hole. Oh my God, I just remembered that one day he took the duct tape and had taped toilet paper in her mouth. And now I know why. Jeez Louise, why did I have to have that flashback? Her hair was half bald, some of it was sticking up and matted. She looked like the beat up version of Cindy from Rugrats. But he knew she was a doll, and he would always say, like, she's the best piece of plastic around. Another time we were at Miss K's, and it was summertime, it was really hot, and she had air conditioning, but she barely ran it, so she'd open the windows and doors. It smelled really bad in her house, and she knew. She was trying to figure out where the smell came from. So she had us kids plundering around the house trying to find this dead rat. So we get to Jay's room, get under his bed, and we pull out these shoe boxes full of dead frogs.
I think something is wrong with my friend's mom. This happened to me about 6 years ago. I was either 13 or 14 years old when it happened. My palms are becoming sweaty just from thinking about the story I'm about to tell you. It took quite some courage to write this. I guess I'll start and keep it short. Back in school, I had a good friend named Ryan, and well, he was my only friend. After school, we always went to his house to hang out. His house sat almost in the middle of a big grazing field, which mostly worked in our advantage as it gave us a lot of room for playing outside. Since the house was in the middle of the field, you would have to follow a long driveway to get there, but that's enough description, so let's cut down to the flesh of the story. It was a little before 8 in the evening, and a huge fight broke out between my parents and me. I was frustrated and couldn't stand it any longer, so I called Ryan's house as I needed to break away from this mess. He picked up the phone and was surprised hearing me at such a late hour. But after hearing my story, he said I could come over, although he said he had football practice and would be away until 9, so I would have to wait for him. I agreed. A mistake. It was night and it was dark. I didn't mind the dark, but I never liked the road that led to his house. It's a wavy pattern that would sometimes make me sick, especially if I was traveling in a car. But now that was not the case. I was on my bike. The disturbing part of this story will not happen on this road, though. It will happen once I reach the house. Parking my bike by the side of their empty garage, I walked up to their front porch, and reaching the door, I rang the bell. The door opened almost as soon as my finger let go of the button, giving me a jump. There was no wait. It literally opened up almost instantaneously. Then I saw. It was his mother. I always liked his mother. She was kind, sweet, and always offered her support whenever I felt down. But I could tell something was wrong with her. Her usually bright eyes seemed darker. Her hair was not neatly tied in a bun behind her head. It fell upon her shoulders. Before I had the chance to examine her further, something much more unsettling caught my eye. She was smiling. She did not greet me or start talking, just kept smiling and stared right at me. Feeling very uncomfortable, I asked if everything was all right. "Come inside and have some tea with me," was her answer. Before I had the chance to answer, she went back into the house. It was then that I noticed that she was wearing her bathroom robe. Having neither the disrespect to decline her offer nor the guts to stay outside in the night, I entered the home and closed the door behind me. Heading towards the kitchen, I could hear her humming a strange tune. The moment I entered, she stopped humming and an overwhelming silence took over. Without waiting for a conversation to start, I took a seat at the kitchen table. She was standing in front of me with her back turned in my direction. I tried not to look at her and started awkwardly looking around the room until the tea was ready. I was thinking, Ryan's mom would always seem warm and loving and eager to talk about anything concerning my school, family life, and anything else. Now she was just silent, saying nothing. I spent the next 5 minutes in this deep thought, and then it occurred to me. She hadn't moved at all during the whole time I was in the kitchen. With her back towards me, I could see that her hands were hanging down her shoulders. Her head was tilted to the left. Thinking something was wrong, I stood from the chair and approached her from behind. Making an awful lot of noise while doing so, she did not move a single bit. Carefully, I approached her from the right side to look at her face to see if she was all right. The following sight still haunts me to this very day. Her eyes were wide open and she was smiling. Being as unsettled as I was, I decided it'd be best to go back home. "I think I better be off now. I have a lot of schoolwork for tomorrow." I lied, and receiving no answer in return, I headed towards the front door and stepped outside onto the porch. I wasn't scared. Well, maybe just a little, but mostly I was just weirded the fuck out. As I moved down the porch towards my bike, I caught a glimpse of 2 lights at the far end of the wavy road. It was a car. Finally, I thought. Ryan was around 10 minutes late. However, as the car was nearing the house, I began wondering who was driving Ryan back from the football practice. His dad was at a business trip and wouldn't be back for another 2 weeks. Ryan himself was too young to drive a car, so who else? I was getting more and more anxious as the car was nearing the house. Who was driving Ryan back? The car pulled into the garage and stopped. Ryan was the first one to get out, giving me a "what's up, man?" But the person who came out of the car next was his mother. She noticed me and asked how everything was. Doppelganger, maybe? What do you think?
For the sake of this story, let's call this guy Brandon. Now, Brandon is a true supporter. He loves my page, and that's why he wanted to tell me the story. Because when he moved to this country, he didn't see many people talking about the things that he went through. He is also from Grenada, so this story's from Grenada. When he was a kid, his dad was, of course, married to his mom. First, everything was great. They were happy. But I guess dad wasn't too happy because he ended up meeting this lady. And he ended up having an affair with this lady. To dad, the affair was just fun. You know, he's just having fun. To the lady that he's having the affair with, she started getting really attached. Mind you, she's aware that he's married. She's aware that he has a kid. It was to the point where she started to ask him to move in with her. But he always kept it a buck with her, like, yeah, we have fun, but you know I'm married, like, and I'm not gonna leave my wife. Like, you knew that when we started messing with each other. So when she said that, his dad took it as a sign, like, I should probably start fucking with you. you catching feelings and shit, like, nah. So he broke it off with her. And that sent her into a turmoil. She would start blowing up his phone. She would start calling his job. She would start showing up at his job. So now his dad is getting nervous because it's like, now this bitch is acting crazy. She's gonna tell my wife. And she did threaten to do that. She was like, yo, if you stop fucking with me, I'm gonna tell your wife. So now he's scared. He really does not want her to tell his wife because his wife was perfect. Like, she cooked for him. She looked good. Like, realistically, there was no problems in his marriage. He just was being a man, you know? Like, anyway, so he started fake acting like he's fucking with her, but he's still, like, trying to keep his distance. He's trying to figure out a way to let her down easily because he sees how when he don't let her down easily, how she get. And so he trying to, like, wait it out to see if it'll smooth itself out. But then he started getting sick, but not like normal sick. Like, he would wake up in the middle of the night shaking, sweating, constantly kept saying he felt like something watching him. And when he sleeps at night, he feels like something sits on his chest. Then his dad started losing weight fast. Went to the doctors couldn't figure out what it is. There's no medical explanation. So his mom is also not stupid, you know? A woman knows. So I guess his mom already kind of had a feeling that he was having an affair. She just didn't have any proof. And so when he started to get sick and when doctors couldn't explain it, she's a smart lady. She put 2 and 2 together. And so she went up to him. She asked him, like, yo, you was cheating on me? Are you cheating on me? He's like, no, I'm not cheating on you. I swear, blah, blah, blah. And his mom basically tells him, like, bro, you really don't have to lie. You can continue to lie, but you're not in a position to lie, considering that the reason why you're sick and you can't get help is because the bitch you're cheating on me with is doing this to you. Well, he's like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, and since you wanted to cheat on me, this is not what I signed up for in the marriage, so I'm gonna need you to leave. And so he's like, leave? I'm sick. He's like, look at me. Ask me if I give a fuck. Get out. That ass, she really kicked him out. And not only did she kick him out, she found out the address of the girl and she dropped him off in her porch. His stuff and everything. So mind you, he's sick, so he can't really do much. So she packed for him and everything. And before she left him on that porch, she looks at him and she says to him, you want to know how I know it's the bitch killing you? Watch how the moment you start living here, because you can't come back to my house, you will start getting better. But every time you step out of her house, there's no getting better for you. She left. I know that's the fuck right. And then tell your mom I said, give me a kiss. Wait, so a week goes past and mom gets a call from dad. Dad is begging her, please let me come home. Not only am I sick, she's sick too. Mom is like, It's like, bro, I'm dead serious. She's getting just as sick as me, really bad. So how is she the one doing this to me if she's getting sick? Mom said that's because I sent you to her. Think I didn't know you was cheating on me? You think before I came to confront you about it, I didn't already dot my I's and cross my T's? Mom found out already. Well, she figured it out when he was sick and, she did her proper research. Before she sent him back to her house. Mind you, she's the wife, so she's taking care of him. She's washing his clothes, she's bathing him, she's feeding him. She had already told her mom and her grandma, and they already did what they needed to do. So the clothes he was wearing when he was there, he was wearing for a reason. Everything that was on him for a reason. He didn't know that though. Mom doesn't tell him either. She don't tell him the plan. She just hang up on him. She waits. And then another week went past and she got another phone call from Dad. This time he's crying, saying now she done kicked him out. She's saying that he's trying to kill her for trying to kill him. Her intentions wasn't actually to kill him. Her intentions was for him to be healthy around her, but sick when he's not around her. So wifey just chuckles a little bit, hangs up the phone. She got in the car and she went to pick his ass up. Picked him up. She didn't even go home with him. She took him straight to her mom and her grandma. They kept him for about an additional week and he came back healthy. About a year later, they end up moving to the United States. They are actually still together. Brandon was younger, like he would remember things like the arguments and his mom kicking him out and stuff like that, but he didn't know the full story because he was a kid. But when he got older, they both actually, like, when he asked about it, they both explained the story to him. He said, like, he said his faults and everything. He said he learned his fucking lesson because when he was about to die, like, that's all the lesson he needed. He ain't never even tried to cheat on his wife ever again. Wait, that's the story, y'all. Don't forget to let me know what you were eating in the comments. Don't forget to grab your ebook so you can stay protected from people like that. Gonna be cheating, at least stay protected. Or you can wait until the physical book come out, or if you need it now, you get it now. You get the discount on the physical book. It's up to you. Anyway, I love you. Bye.
Hello and welcome back to a series of spooky stories, The Haunted Tea Spill. This series is brought to you by all things spooky and ungodly amounts of paranormal activity. Of course, it's down here, it's cute if you want it. Now onto the story. I used to live in northern Georgia from about 2016 to 2018, and I actually have a few stories from my time there. Feel free to post at any time or in any order. Story 1. To start this off, I used to live in Lyerly, Georgia, on a property that no longer exists. I really hope that I said that right. I'm actually thankful for this because the property was the most haunted thing that I have ever encountered in my life. It had a large house that my landlord lived in, which was built in the early 1800s. The owner had figured this out by date carved into the original log foundation. To clarify, we lived separately from our landlord in a camper at the back of the property. The house never felt right. The property didn't either, but it was nice at first. One morning, I was in my landlord's kitchen. We were close friends at the time, so I was making a cup of coffee. I was alone. My husband was watching TV with our landlord and his wife in their bedroom and our children. My daughter, who was 2 at the time, my son, who was 4, and our landlord's kids, who were 10, 12, were all in the living room watching TV. Suddenly, I heard clear as day, like my daughter was in earshot. "Mommy, I don't feel good." Naturally, I freaked out thinking one of my children was sick, but when I went to check on the kids, they were all still watching TV and said that they never left the room. The air didn't even feel right after that, like eyes were on me. They definitely were. A day or 2 later, my landlord's oldest daughter, who was 17, her boyfriend at the time, and I and my husband were chatting in the living room when she remembered his sleep recording app that she had just gotten and had used for the first time the night before. I'm terrified to do anything like that, because if I find anything on there that's not me, my travel to the high heavens will be expedited. She pulled up the app to check it and let the recorder play to see what it caught. There were a few funny moments, but it got dark really fast. The recording picked up loud footsteps like heavy boots and objects being thrown. Then it actually caught the most terrifying EVP I've ever heard in person. It was a distorted voice telling her to unalive herself, and if she didn't, then it would unalive her entire family. She stopped using that bedtime recorder app, and to be honest, I don't blame her. She stopped using the app and didn't move out? Are we blaming the app? We didn't... Okay. Story number 2. It was super late at night and a couple of months after the first story. We were wrapping up a good party with one of our friends while our kids had slept for the night. Our friend was staying in our landlord's house with his oldest daughter, who had gotten with him after breaking up with the former from the first story. She'd gone to bed hours ago, and now that it was about 3 a.m., he decided that it was time to head to bed himself. We said our goodnights and saw him out. No sooner than my husband sat back down, our friend burst through the door looking as white as a ghost. He said in a panic that he's sleeping with us tonight because there's an old woman in a nightgown on their back porch and she looked angry. Not just a ghost. An angry old woman ghost? No elderly people were living or even around that property. He described her in such detail as well, how she had silver hair that was put up into a bun and how her nightgown covered her feet and didn't look like it was from this century. Even her cold, icy glare and sunken eye sockets. We agreed that he was going to stay the night. I don't like those. I don't like those at all. The fact that they stayed in the house after that recording is insane. Just deleting the app and ignoring it. It's crazy. Anyway, rate both of those on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being the least scary, creepy, spooky, 10 being the most. Which one was scary? Excuse me, a hiccup. There is a third story, and that will be in the next video because this one's a little bit longer than the other two. If you have a story of your own that you want to submit, you can do so on the link tree in my profile. I will see you all the next episode. Stay spooky, friends.
So has anybody else seen that video where that girl bought a haunted mirror at a garage sale for $2? So she buys it and she brings it home from the garage sale and she's looking all over her house for the best place for it. She can't find anywhere, so she decides to sit it in the corner facing her bed. Which if you've heard many ghost stories, you probably know that you're not supposed to have a mirror facing your bed. Fast forward to later that night, they're all in bed asleep. Her and her husband are awoken to the sound of their baby crying in the other room. Her husband goes to take care of their daughter. While her husband was in the other room taking care of the baby, she hears a door close. She thought it might just be her son waking up, so she got up and she decides to go take a look and see if her son's awake, and there was nobody up. She didn't think much of it. She just laid back down and went back to bed. The next morning, her husband came to her and was like, "Hey, so last night when I was in the room taking care of our baby, did you come in there and kick my leg?" And of course she was like, "No, I didn't kick your leg. Like, what do you mean?" And so he tells her, like, somebody forcefully kicked his leg while he was in there taking care of the baby, as if they were trying to wake him up, like it was her trying to wake him up. Or at least that's what he thought. At this time, she still wasn't really putting the pieces together, like she wasn't thinking that it was the mirror or like a connection to anything. If you remember, that's when she heard the door close. So at the same time that her husband's leg was getting kicked, she heard a door shut. Coincidence? I don't know. So fast forward and she starts having these like super vivid, scary dreams. Like dreams that her family's being attacked by witches and she's like praying in these dreams and it's just super scary and super real and vivid. And she had never experienced having bad dreams like that before. And at this point, she still wasn't really connecting the dots, like she hadn't figured out that it was the mirror that was making all these things happen. Until one day she was talking to her friend and her friend like casually mentioned in conversation that you shouldn't have mirrors facing beds. And that's when like a light bulb went off and all the dots started connecting and she was like, oh wait, maybe this has to do with the mirror, because it all started the day that she bought it at the garage sale and brought it home and sat it facing towards her bed. Mind you, this video was posted 22 hours ago and it only had like 40 likes or something. But she said last night she was sitting there and she starts hearing this weird beeping sound. It's like beep 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 boop boop beep beep boop. So she goes to investigate what the sound is coming from. And she posted a video clip of what she found, so I'm gonna insert that now. Everything else that had been going on, she automatically assumed that this was just connected. She thought maybe the battery was just low, so she decided to throw it out the door and grab it in the morning and see, if the battery had died. Lo and behold, this morning, the battery was fine, the phone was still working like normal. So she decided it was time to get rid of this thing. She found somebody that wanted the mirror. I'm not sure who. I'm sure she told them what was going on and everything. But anyway, somebody wanted the mirror. They came and got it, and she said that her entire house just feels like it's been spared. I'm going to go ahead and insert a photo of the mirror now. If you don't want to see it, I suggest you go ahead and scroll. So this is what it looks like. I don't know. What do y'all think? Do you feel weird energy when you see it? Let me know what y'all thought about this story in the comments. I love reading y'all's thoughts. A scary story of your own that you'd like for me to share, you can send it to my email address, which is even better if you have like video footage or evidence. Just send it all. I love to read y'all's scary stories. It's so much fun. It's been a while, so I have a lot to post right now. Stay tuned, and as always, I look forward to seeing you in another video. Love y'all.
Bigfoot, portals, and blurry images all go hand in hand, and there are 8 people in Ohio that can vouch for it. Lip combo on so I can run this mouth. Now focus. Scary story time, Fright Night Files. So Bigfoot is really popular right now and people are pretty stoked about it. So let me tell you what's happening because I have been down this rabbit hole all morning. Northeast Ohio, there's this woodsy area, specifically in Portage County, there's these towns called Manaway and Garrettsville. So between March 6th and March 10th, the Bigfoot Society podcast received confirmed 8 separate sightings of Bigfoot in that area, all seen in the same wooded area. Now, this is called a flap, if you didn't know. In cryptozoology, that's what the name of a group of sightings of Bigfoot is. Apparently, this is the biggest flap since 1970. My favorite sighting was by a mother and daughter on Route 303. They're driving, minding their own business, when all of a sudden they are within 3 feet of what they describe as a Bigfoot, that he was 6.5 feet tall, brown figure. He had a stilt gait, and get this, a blurred face, which is important. Then you've got other witnesses describing seeing large human-shaped figures moving through the trees. They're described as being very fast, but when they turn, they don't turn by their neck, they turn their whole shoulders, which was interesting. But the cool and strange part is everyone's kind of reporting seeing different ones, like different sizes, different shapes, different colors, like brown, black. They're always kind of grouped together and then they just disappear. The thing is they seem to be moving because they started out in Portage County and they're tracking southeast towards Trumbull County. So whatever this is, it's definitely on the move. Here's the thing. If Bigfoot is this undiscovered animal living in the woods, why can't we find him? There's trail cams everywhere. We have drones, thermal imaging. There are people actively looking for him, but they can't find anything that says like, oh, he was here. No home, no bones, no anything like that. So then you've got these researchers, and they're not just like internet people trying to piece things together. They're cryptozoologists, and they have a theory about him and portals. They think he's not from here at all. They think he's from some other dimension, and he just hops in and out, and the portals are in different places, and then they shift and then reopen at different points in time, which would explain why all of them were seen in the 70s and then not seen again until recently. Okay, now the blurred part, right? Everyone's big joke is, why can't we have a clear picture of Bigfoot? There's all of these cameras taking photos of Bigfoot, but they're always blurred. It always looks like it was taken on a cell phone from like the early 90s or something. But here's the thing. They said that when you're like going through these portals and stuff, you blur in and out. So you're not completely there yet. So they think that when people are getting these images of Bigfoot, it's because he's not completely through the portal yet, which kind of makes sense. I mean, think about it. If that portal thing is real, then the blurry photos checks out. So has Bigfoot really been seen in Ohio? I don't know. But I do know that 8 separate people have reported seeing him around the same place, and not just one, lots of them. So if you live in Portage or Trumbull County, I need you in my comments right now. I need to know, how are people reacting? Do people believe it? Are people finally being like, okay, see, I've been telling you for years? Or are people just kind of blowing it off? I need to know. I need to know all the details. And if you have a story of your own, you know where to send it. Send it, because I want to hear it and I want to tell everyone else about it. You know I love me some good cryptic gossip. So spill it.
This story is pretty disturbing. This person says that when they were in college, they took a journalism class, and one of the assignments was that they had to write an obituary for one of their grandparents. Now listen to this. This is pretty messed up. The professor said that they should write it on a deceased grandparent, but if all of their grandparents were alive and well, they still had to pick one to write about, which, I don't know, I feel like that's inappropriate. And of course, in their case, all of their grandparents were alive. So they kind of procrastinated on this assignment. They said that they just felt like it was too morbid. So they really pushed it off pretty much until the night before it was due. They're kind of scrambling and they're trying to decide on a grandparent that might be sort of the easiest to write about. So they end up calling their mother because they decided that they were going to write about her father. So their maternal grandfather. So they were talking about the grandpa's career, and then the mother couldn't recall some of the companies that he worked for. She lectured them about waiting till the last minute because it was 10:30 p.m. and no grandparents are awake at that hour. But since the assignment was due the following morning, she said she would call her dad and just ask him the questions, hoping he was awake. So she calls him, and the grandmother answers the phone, and she was frantic and panicking. And get this, she said that the paramedics were currently there doing CPR on the grandfather because he had stopped breathing and lost consciousness. They said that their mother was able to stay on the phone with grandma until they got grandpa to the hospital. But unfortunately, upon arrival, he was declared deceased. They just kept reiterating that in the time that they were discussing their grandfather's obituary, he was dying. And the weirdest part of all is that this death was completely unexpected. They did say that he was in his 80s, but he was the healthiest out of all the grandparents, totally out of nowhere. Oh my God. And they said they ended up actually using that obituary that they wrote for their school assignment for their grandfather. They just say it still freaks them out thinking about the timing of that. That is very disturbing. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments. If you have a creepy story of your own, I would love to hear it. And if you're new here, definitely follow for more creepy story time.
Let's read another scary story. Someone knocked, but nobody was there. This story took place in Austria, in a small, little-known village. So it all started with me and my best friend, Nina. We went over to her boyfriend's place, Maxie, and a really close friend of ours, Xaver, was there too. We're in this tight-knit group, just the four of us, inseparable. But that night, we were all so bored we didn't know what to do. So we started scrolling on TikTok, trying to find something fun. And then we had this idea. Right next to Max's house, there's this field, just wide open, kind of eerie. So we thought, let's go out there at night with creepy music in the background. Now, Nina and I, we really believe in the paranormal. We'd even been watching some spooky videos beforehand, and by this point, we were absolutely on edge. I mean, we almost didn't want to go because it was too creepy for us. But Maxie and Xaver, they were totally fine, no fear at all. Eventually, we went. We stepped out into that field, and it was so unsettling. The music was playing, and Nina and I, we were completely freaked out, screaming, just terrified. But for Maxie and Xaver, it was all a joke. No big deal, just fun. They didn't believe in any of this. As we were heading back, Nina and I heard a faint whisper, like a soft rustling, as if leaves were crunching underfoot, like someone was stepping on them. And that made us even more freaked out, so we rushed back even faster. This time, no creepy music at all. Nina and I, we really believe in the paranormal, and we kept thinking that if we stayed any longer, we might attract something, like flesh pedestrians, or something else lurking in the dark. As we were heading back, just before we went inside Maxie's house, we glanced across the old barn. Nina said she heard something, and I saw a shadow in the window. That pushed us even further into panic, making us shake even more as we finally went inside. Now, we're back in Max's house, safe, but still completely shaken by what we felt and heard that night. Nina and I went to the second floor bathroom, just talking about what happened, while Maxie and Xaver went up to the balcony on the third floor. And the house was empty, no parents around, they were out for dinner. We were just sitting there, processing. Suddenly, we heard 2 knocks. And then we heard the door handle turn. We said, wait just a second, thinking it was Maxie or Xaver messing around. But when we went upstairs and asked them, Nina and I were frozen. They said they hadn't even been near the second floor. The blood ran cold in our veins. Who had knocked twice? Who had touched that handle? Even now, a week later, I can't forget it, because Maxie and Xaver, they're not the type to pull pranks. They don't even believe in the paranormal. It's usually Nina and I who joke around like that. Up on the balcony, Max and Xaver were just playing board games, having fun. So this was not a joke, this was something real that we still can't explain. And that's why Nina and I were even more terrified. I feel like some of the scariest stories always have something to do with knocking. Like, I feel like there's always a spirit or entity knocking on a door. And the fact that you guys both heard it, and you were very clear that Maxie and Xaver do not pull pranks and they were up on the balcony playing games, like, that makes it all the more creepy. Thank you, Sophia, for submitting this story. If you guys have any stories you'd like me to read, please email them to me and I will get to them if I can. And I will see you in the next one.
I just received this email about a man that made a pact with a D word, and what ended up happening next is seriously straight out of a horror movie. I'm like getting hot just talking about it. Let me take this off. My uncle Rafael has always been desperate to be rich. One day when he was about 23 years old, he disappeared for 2 whole days. None of our family members could get a hold of him. We tried calling, texting, none of our calls were returned. Then out of nowhere, he just showed up again as if nothing had happened. But something about him was different. It was almost like something within him had changed. Not long after, he became extremely lucky. Like, he won the lottery. He ended up buying a bunch of businesses. He got married and he settled down. This all happened within like a year. But then we noticed that every year on March 17th, like clockwork, he would disappear for 2 whole days. It got to a point where no one really asked any more questions. We all just got used to it. I mean, this went on for about 10 years. On his 33rd birthday, March 17th rolled around again, but this time he didn't disappear. He was home. Instead, he locked himself away in one of the bedrooms that he had in the house. There was this one room in the house where no one was allowed to go in there, not even his wife. That night, he put himself in the room. He told his wife that under no circumstances is she to open that door, that he had some things that he needed to handle and she needed to just stay out of it. Confused and not really sure how to respond to it, she kind of went along with it. That night, she reported hearing screaming and shouting coming from 2 separate people. She says that the other voice sounded like it was very deep and like strong and loud, and at some point she even heard what sounded like it was speaking a different language. She then says she heard like a struggle in the room, and then she heard when something slammed loudly against the door, so hard that the door frame literally cracked. He's of course terrified and starts banging on the door, asking my uncle if he's okay. My uncle keeps telling her to stay out of it, to get away from it, that she doesn't want to know what's going on in there, that it's better if she just doesn't know. The next morning, he came out of that room looking pale and terrified. That's when he finally broke down and told his wife that he had made a pact with the D word in order to be wealthy. He explained that the reason why he would disappear for 2 whole days on March 17th was because he would go off and do sacrifices and like rituals on people. Like he literally was sacrificing people in order to keep this pact active, that it got to a point where he just couldn't do it anymore, which is when he decided to lock himself away in that room. Apparently he had some sort of protection sigils in that room that he thought would keep him safe, but that wasn't the case. That the screaming that his wife had heard was the D word himself trying to enforce the pact. After that night, my uncle's life completely spiraled. All of his fortune was just gone, like they couldn't even explain it. At the age of 34, he passed away due to a heart attack. He had never had any heart conditions or any heart issues before any of this. After he passed away, his wife finally went into that locked room. That's when he found out about all the sigils. The room was completely empty. There was no furniture. There was nothing in there, just sigils that he had carved all over the walls and all over the floor. But the one thing that stood out that was carved in the floor was the date March 17th, 2029. No one knows what it means, but she says sometimes late at night she still hears faint scratching coming from that room. She also says that every March 17th, even though it's been years since he's been gone, she says she still feels like a sudden chill, like something is still there kind of watching her, like checking in. But what do you guys think that March 17th, 2029 means? I mean, that's a date in the future. Like, what's gonna happen on March 17, 2029? I don't know, that kind of really freaked me out.
I met someone who wasn't human. I try to be really careful with these stories because I think that everybody's perception of normalcy for a human is on a scale, and it's vastly different. But then some of them come in, and I read them, and I'm like, yeah, that's definitely not your average Homo sape. Our friend who we're just going to call Matt sent us the story, and he said that this happened back in the 90s. It's while he was in college, and he had found this little cottage to rent, and he said he was a long-term renter, but most of the cottages around him, some did have full-time residents, but most of the cottages around him were short-term rentals because this was like a little vacation town. So directly next door to Matt is a short-term rental, and he says that their driveways kind of butt up to each other. There is a privacy fence that does go a certain length of the driveway, and then it starts to kind of taper off as you get closer to the road. So he could always see like when someone was there, people pulling in, coming and going. Matt told me that the person who owned this short-term rental actually did live locally. So he said you went up the road, went over about a block, and the guy lived there full-time all the time. He said that he would come by to check on the house periodically. He and Matt did foster a bit of a relationship, not anything deep, just friendly. But he said he'd really only see him when it was warm because just as pretty much all places that are vacation spots, during the winter, everything kind of slows down. So in the winter, when it was cold, nobody would really rent that cottage that Matt lived next door to. He comes home one day and he notices that the guy who owns the cottage is over at the cottage just kind of checking out the grounds. And Matt's like, oh, hey, how's it going? And he's like, oh, it's good. And Matt says, oh, it's cold. Like, do you have, renters coming in this week? And the guy says, yeah, actually, I do. This place is booked. Like, that's great. I know it's cold, but hey, I'm going to take the money. And Matt's like, hell yeah, babe, get your bag. Well, he was probably like, yes, sir. Matt said that this was a Thursday. Normally guests would check in on Saturday, so he figures, all right, he's just coming to check out the house, whatever, no big deal. I'm just going to do my thing. Friday comes, it's uneventful. Friday night comes. Matt says that he was a smoker, so he had this little space kind of where that fence dipped down in the driveway where he would sit outside of his side door and he would smoke. He said it's late at night. It's like 10 o'clock, and he says that he sees a car come pulling in the cottage driveway, the one next door. And he's thinking, that's an odd time, but okay. So car pulls into the driveway. He says that this guy gets out, very tall, very thin, gets out of the car and starts to walk to the backyard, but his arms don't move. He just walks with his legs. Matt thinks different, but it's efficient. Matt says he's usually pretty friendly, but it was late at night and he's thinking, I'm sure this guy is just tired. I'll probably see him tomorrow and I'll say hello just so that he feels comfortable here or whatever. But he said the guy walks, but he doesn't go into the house. He just walks directly into the backyard. Matt says he's like, whatever, maybe he just really wants to check out the lawn. Matt lets it go. He goes inside. He shuts the door. Matt said he was a night owl, so he would be up until midnight, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And he would periodically step outside of the side door to smoke cigarettes. He said about 12:30 rolls around. He goes outside to smoke a cigarette. Matt is sitting there looking at the privacy fence, and he says that he hears footsteps walking on the other side of the fence. And he's thinking, no way, is this guy still up, the guy who pulled in to rent this cottage? And he says that slowly, and he kind of like comes out from where that fence kind of depresses a little bit, and he just sees the top of his head, and then more and more. He says he's still not moving his arms, but he's just walking. He walks down to the end of the driveway to where there is no fence between Matt and this guy who is renting the cottage. And Matt says that he just stares at him. No words, doesn't say anything. Like Matt said, he's friendly, so he talks to him. He's like, hey, how's it going? Like, are you staying next door? And the guy just nods his head. So Matt tries to make conversation with him, like, okay, like, that's cool, like, where are you from? And the guy does not answer. Matt says he just kind of tilts his head and looks at him, and he says, is this normally when people sleep? Matt said he's thinking, well, that's a weird question. It is 12:30 at night. Yes, people are sleeping. And then Matt started thinking about it, and he was like, what an odd thing to ask. Is this normally when people sleep? Not, is it normally this quiet at night, or is everyone in the neighborhood usually sleeping by this time? Just, is this normally when people sleep? Matt says that he tells the guy, yes, this is normally when people sleep. And he says that the guy smiles, and it's like too big for his face, and he just says, I have so much to learn. Now, where Matt is sitting to smoke his cigarettes, he says he does have a little bit of an overhead light that's off this side porch. So it's pretty much shining directly on this guy. And he says that they're having a conversation, that little bit of conversation that they had. Good look at him. And he said that he never saw this guy blink his eyes, ever. And then Matt says that they're outside, the wind blows, so the trees start to move. And this guy, like, jerks his head towards the trees and is just watching the wind move the trees like he's never seen anything like this before in his life. He's just in awe, just looking up at these trees like, Matt asks the guy, are you staying for the entire week? Are you here for work? Or, you know, what's your reason for coming? And the guy doesn't even look away from the trees, and he just tells him, I'm just here for a short time. I just need to see something. But never stops looking at the trees to look back at Matt. Matt's pretty much done with the conversation at this point, so he kind of looks at the guy and he was like, all right, well, I'm going to head in. I'm going to get some sleep. I hope that you enjoy your stay. Maybe we'll see each other again. Guy's still not looking away from the trees, just nods his head, and Matt goes to walk in the door, and he says as he's opening the door, he stops and he turns back to the guy and he tells him, hey, it's cold out here, so you might want to put on a jacket. Just saying, because he said the guy was standing there in short sleeves and he said it was cold. So the guy finally looks at him and just says, yeah. Matt goes into his house, he locks the door, and he says that he watches this guy out the window, and this guy just stands there in the driveway staring at the trees. He says he watches him for an hour and 30 minutes. The guy does not move, doesn't put a jacket on, nothing. Matt says at this point, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. It is freezing outside. This guy has just been standing there. He hasn't moved, nothing. Matt's thinking, maybe I should call the owner of this rental and let him know kind of what's going on over here. See if he wants me to, like, call the authorities or something. But Matt says no, because everybody's got their thing and everybody's got their vibe. I'm not doing it. Matt says he reasons this in his mind and just thinks maybe the guy just, like, really likes trees. Maybe that's why he's here, the trees. Matt wakes up the next morning. He says it's about 8 a.m. He looks outside. The car is gone. The guy is gone. There's no one there. So this is Saturday. Normally, if someone was going to check into the cottage, it would be around 11:30. So at about 9 a.m., the cleaning crew shows up, and Matt's thinking, that's odd. That is odd. Why are they here? This cleaning crew cleaned all of the cottages around Matt where he was living long term. So he had made friends with him. So when he sees them out there, he goes outside and he says, what, did the guy who stayed here last night like make a big mess or something? He says that the girl who he's pretty close with looks at him and is like, Matt, no one stayed here last night. What are you talking about? Matt says he's like, yeah, no, there was a guy. He really loved the trees. And Matt says the cleaning crew is just like, no, there was no one here. There was no one here to be checked in last night. They are coming today at normal check-in time, and we're just once and over because no one's been in here. Even after talking to the cleaning crew, he's thinking there must be some sort of mistake, so he does end up calling the owner of this property. He tells him, hey, there was a guy here last night who was staying at your cottage. And Matt said, listen, this was the 90s, so in order to rent these cottages, you had to go through a rental company, look through a magazine, work it out with them, work it out with the owner. It wasn't just like you could quick book online, they tell you where the keys are, and then you go there. But the owner checks his records, and he tells him, nope, there was no one who was supposed to be staying there last night. No one should have checked in. They're checking in today at 11:30. Matt just tells the guy, okay, that's fine, but I'm just telling you that there was somebody there last night. Matt hangs up the phone, and the more that he starts to think about it, he realizes that he never actually saw this guy go inside. He was just in the backyard or standing in the driveway all night. Matt is thinking, it's weird. He was weird. You know, the conversation, the thing with the trees, the way that he looked, the smile being off, never blinking of the eyes, I don't know, whatever. But the guy didn't really do anything illegal. It's not like he broke into the house or whatever. He said maybe he just stopped here for a while. Maybe he just really liked these trees. So 11:30 rolls around. The family that has rented the cottage is checking in. They pull into the driveway. Matt is outside. Matt says, hey. They talk to him. They are very friendly. Perfectly normal people. Later that night at about 11:30, again, Matt goes outside to smoke a cigarette. He's not trying to bother anybody, but he hears footsteps on the other side of the fence again, and he's thinking, oh my gosh, is this guy back? What's happening? But he says that walking down the driveway where he can see them over the fence is actually the dad of this family. When Matt sees him, he kind of takes a sigh of relief, and the dad is like, are you okay? Like, did I scare you? And Matt goes on to tell him, like, no, you didn't scare me, like the guy who was here last night. And the dad asks him, what guy who was here last night? But Matt goes on to tell me, it was like, I don't know, just like tall, thin, kind of an awkward conversation. I don't know. Without Matt even saying anything, this guy whips his head towards the trees that are in the backyard that this guy had been so focused on. And he looks at the trees. He's intensely looking at the trees. He looks back at Matt and he says, thanks. He says it wasn't 30 minutes after this family heard what he had said. They packed their stuff up. They were gone. Like quickly, like scared. But Matt did say that the situation wasn't sitting right with him, so he actually did call in a tip to the local police. He's like, I just didn't know if this was maybe like some sort of a trafficking situation, if they were in witness protection. I have no idea. But he said, I told them everything. I know I probably sounded crazy, but I would have rather made the call than not make the call. He said that he never heard anything from this. He never saw that family again. He never saw that guy again. He lived at that cottage for the rest of his college career. He says, I don't know if it was paranormal. I don't know if it's just some whack job who was following this family. I don't know. I tried to do my due diligence by calling authorities and letting them know, but nothing. Good on Matt for making the call, even if it was nothing, you know? Just let me know what you think about all that. Do you think it was paranormal? Do you think, like, what was this? But Matt just said, like, the guy did not feel human. It was giving Uncanny Valley. It was giving weird. The weirdest thing that's ever happened to me.
Turn around. He's behind you. Now, David and his friend Alex were up in the North Woods doing some ice fishing. Now, they were in a very remote area near a very large lake. And this area was considered to be sacred ground by the Native Americans. So, being that it was the middle of winter and it was very cold, they were being very precautious. They had a very large fire going. As they sat around the campfire, they began to hear something coming from the woods. David said, what is that? Like, what's that sound? And his friend Alex goes, I don't know. Like, I hear it too. And he says, well, maybe we should go and investigate and see what it is. So they both get up and they start walking out into the woods. The next thing David knows, he's lying on the ground and he is ice cold and his friend Alex is gone. He gets up, he starts looking around for him. He starts yelling his name. He doesn't see Alex anywhere. He makes his way back to their campsite, only to discover that the fire has completely burned out. That's when it started to snow. And it was coming down very, very heavy, almost like a blizzard. So David knew that he needed to find a cave or some kind of shelter to keep him warm from this very bad snowstorm. So he makes his way out into the woods again, and he starts wandering. The snow is coming down heavier and heavier by the minute, and he can barely see in front of him. And that's when he hears, turn around, he's behind you. He hears a voice. He looks around, he can't see anything because it's snowing everywhere. And once again, he hears, turn around, he's behind you. So David just keeps on walking. And he keeps hearing over and over again, turn around, he's behind you. Finally, it gets to the point where he can not even see what's in front of him because the snow is coming down so heavy now. And he knows if he doesn't find shelter soon, that will be the end of him. He said that's when all of a sudden he ran into something. And as he starts feeling around, he feels what seems like some sort of wooden shingles. And he realizes there's some sort of cabin. Now, the rule of the North Woods is when there is a very bad snowstorm, you are always welcome into someone's cabin. So he makes his way around this cabin and eventually finds the door handle. He opens up the door, and right as he turns the handle, he hears, come in. And as he opens the door, he says, thank you. Like, I've lost my friend. Like, there's a heavy snowstorm. Like, I don't know what to do. I need to take shelter. And I hope you don't mind me just coming in here. Like, but I need a place to stay for the night. But as he makes his way into this cabin, it is completely pitch black. There's no lights. There's no candles. There's no fire going. It's just completely dark. But out of the corner of his eye, in the corner of the room, he sees the silhouette of a person sitting in a chair. So David makes his way around this cabin, and he finds a spot where he can sit down. And he tells this man, like, thank you for once again for letting me come in. Like, there's just a really bad storm out there, and I don't know what to do. And he says, if you just give me a few moments, I will go out and I'll gather some firewood and I'll get a fire going. And he said, that's when this person said, yes, hungry. He said, oh, you're hungry? He's like, I don't have any food with me. Like, I left it back at the campsite. But, in the morning, maybe I could do some hunting or fishing and I could give you something to eat. And he says, yes, delicious. So he keeps trying to have a conversation with this guy, and the guy doesn't really talk that much. He says very little. And he can't even see what this guy looks like. He doesn't even know who he is. He just sees the outline of him in the darkness. So he says, you know what? I'm kind of tired. I'm going to try and get some shut-eye, and in the morning I'll try and see if I can find my friend Alex. So he lays on his back, and he manages to find something to put behind his head. And he starts dozing off. And that's when he hears, turn around, he's behind you. And he wakes up. And he looks over in the corner. He doesn't see the silhouette of the man anymore. This man is now gone. And he said as he turned and looked around the room, he could not see this man anymore. So he just sits up. And he's, kind of panicking. And he keeps hearing, turn around, he's behind you. And he's thinking to himself, like, where is this guy? Like, what is he messing with me? Like, what's going on? And he could just hear the wind whipping against the house. He said that's when, finally, he turns around. And the next thing he knows, he feels this sharp pain throughout his body. And he's on the ground. He wakes up, and it's now morning. The sun is shining into the window of the cabin. He said that's when he looked over in the direction of where that man was sitting. And he said that guy wasn't there. It was his friend, Alex, a half-eaten body. And he discovered he's missing a tooth. One of his teeth were stuck into his friend Alex. That's when it occurred to him. He had been stuck in the snowstorm for a very long time, and he had eaten his friend. Louisiana is a spooky place. At nighttime, I will not go out because there's a lot of creepy supernatural stuff that happens in New Orleans. Now, there's this woman named Sarah. Sarah said that she and her friends were down at the French Quarter. She said this one night they go to this bar and they're over in the corner just talking, having a good time. Well, all of a sudden this man walks through the door and he's dressed really nice. He's got this cape on. She said he was just this beautiful, immaculate looking person. And he just walked over by the bar and just stood there. And the whole night, her friends are talking to her and everybody's dancing and having a good time. But she could not take her eyes off this man. And she felt almost like she was in this trance. After about an hour, she gets this feeling she should go over and talk to him. So she walks over to where he's standing. She goes, hi, I'm Sarah. The man just turns. He walks out the front door. And she feels compelled to follow him. So she walks out behind him. And he goes out around the corner into the alley. And he goes back a ways. She gets back there to where he's at. And she goes, "What are you doing out here? Why are you outside?" And this man turns and he grabs her by the shoulders and pushes her up against the wall. And he begins to try and go for her neck like he's getting ready to bite her. But then she hears her friends screaming her name. And when she looks, the man is gone. So she runs over to her friends and she's, in tears. And she goes, the man, he was going to get me. Like, I don't know who he was. And her friends were like, "Wait a second. What man? We seen you in the bar. You were talking to someone that wasn't there. You walked out of the bar by yourself and you went into the alley." And she swore up and down that she had seen this man. And for weeks, she could not get him out of her head. Now, New Orleans has also been a hotspot for paranormal activity, especially after the hurricanes hit. And shortly after Hurricane Katrina, there were a lot of strange things that happened. There was this older woman. She said she lived in the area close to where these dams had broken and Lake Pontchartrain leaked into the city. She said one night she was cooking dinner and she hears a knock at the front door. She goes to the front door, she answers it, and there's this small young girl in a purple dress, and she is completely wet, soaked in mud, and she's like, "Please, can you help me? I'm cold." And the woman said, "Absolutely, child, like, come inside." So she brings this girl inside and she sits her on the couch. She runs to go get her phone to call the police. But when she comes back to the living room, the girl is gone. She almost thought for a second that she had just imagined this until she's seen these wet, muddy footprints leading from the porch to the couch. So what do you think? Is New Orleans a creepy place? What is going on in Ohio? Now, there have been several Bigfoot sightings that have occurred in the past couple of months. We just seen a UFO sighting, and there was even reports of a strange meteorite last week. Now, Ohio is also famous for something else known as the Grassman. The Grassman is Ohio's version of Bigfoot. It's around 7 to 8 feet tall. It hides in the tall grass. Imagine this hairy creature with grass and sticks in its fur, hiding in the tall grass, and someone walks by and it grabs them and takes them away. Now, there was this man named Randy. Randy lived in eastern Ohio near Akron. And every summer, him and his friends would go to his father's beach house on this private lake. Well, this one summer, Randy and his friends, they go out there. And the first 2 days, they're having a really good time. On the third day, they happen to have this big party. And they got this huge bonfire going out in front of the house. And Randy is out on the dock. And as he's standing on the dock, he notices something about 30 yards away. There's this head sticking out of the water, about up to its nose. And you can see part of its head. It's covered in fur. It's got sticks, grass, and algae covering it. And it looked like this head was just staring at him. The water was moving around it, and it was just in the water. And so Randy sat there for about 15, 20 minutes, and this thing didn't move. So he goes up onto shore, and he starts hanging out with his friends. After about an hour or so, he remembers, like, I wonder if that thing's still in the water. So he walks out to the dock, and when he looks out, about 30 yards out now, there is that head just sticking out of the water. So he's kind of freaked out. He goes back inside with his friends. And after about an hour or so, some of his friends had went to bed. He's in the living room. All of a sudden, his friend comes running out of the room screaming, and he says, I seen this tall, hairy creature covered in grass and green algae, and it was just staring at me through the window. And so instantly Randy's like, well, I seen this thing out in the water. So they all run outside, they go out to the dock, and there it is, just chilling in the water, about 10 feet from the dock. All of a sudden, this thing comes up out of the water, and it comes up onto the shore, and it chases them. They take off running, they jump in their car, and they get out of there. Well, a couple weeks later, Randy's dad tells him that they had found the maintenance worker in the lake, and he was just floating there, and something had attacked him. One of the creepiest things that can happen to you when you're alone at night is hearing a knock at the door. Now, people across the world report something called the black-eyed children, and it's said it is never a good idea to let them in. Now, this first story takes place in Naperville. There was this woman who said during this period of time she was working in this office building. She had to work really late, and it was probably like 2 a.m. Well, she ended up getting a phone call, and so she decided to go outside the building and take the call. In order to exit this building, right, there's one door that closes by itself and it locks, and you have to have a key card to get in. It takes you into this little hallway, and there's another door, which is the same thing. It closes on its own, and you have to have a key card to get in. So she goes outside, and she starts talking on the phone. That's when she notices these two 14-year-old looking kids. They're standing a good distance away in this other parking lot, and they're just staring at her. She said they had their hoods up. She couldn't see their faces, but she got like a bad feeling. She turns, and she talks for, 15, 20 more seconds. And when she turns again, they are very close to her now. And she's like, how in the world could they have gotten that close in that amount of time? So she's freaked out. She runs back to the office building. She uses her key card. She gets inside, and then she goes into the other door. She said that's when she started to hear a banging sound at the inside door in the hallway. And she said she looked out the window. There were those two kids, and they were standing there banging on the door. They had solid black eyes, and they were saying, hey, let us in. Let us use your phone. We need to call someone. And she's like, no, get away from me. Like, go away. You're not supposed to be here. And she said, that outside door was locked. There was no way they could have gotten in without a key card. No one else was outside to let them in. Well, they continuously are banging at this door, and they're getting more angry, and their voices are getting deeper, and they're threatening her. So she's like, go away, like, leave me alone. She said eventually she just started saying prayers. And after she said the prayers, she said they just disappeared, and she had no idea where they went. She'd never seen them again, but it definitely creeped her out. This next story takes place in Buffalo Grove. There was this woman who said when she was younger, she recalled a story that her mother told her. So she was at home one night with her mom and her dad. She said they were all sitting in the living room watching TV when they heard a knock at the door. Boom, boom, boom. So she said her mother went to the door, and she opens it up, and there were a couple kids there. And they're like, hey, your daughter that's inside, like, we want to play with her. Can we come inside? And she's like, no, like, it's too late, and she's got to go to bed. And they're like, no, let us inside. We want to play with your daughter. And she's like, well, how do you know I have a daughter? And they go, she's in there. She's right there. And they started pointing at her. And she said the mother was very adamant, no, you cannot come inside this house. So she closes the door. And she tells her daughter, like, hey, like, there's these weird kids at the door. Like, you didn't meet anyone or anything. And she goes, no, like, I haven't been out of the house, in like a long time. So, like, there's no way I met these young kids. So a couple hours later, she's in her bedroom. And she just remembered laying in her bed and hearing a knock. Boom, 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 at her window. She said it was like a knock where they would continuously knock 3 times and then stop. So she got up out of her bed. She goes over to the window. She said there were 3 kids standing next to her window looking in. And they're like, hey, open the window. Let us come inside and play with you. And she's like, no, like, my mom will get mad. And they're like, no, open the window. Let us come inside now. We can't come in unless you invite us. And she's like, no, listen, I cannot let you in. My mom is going to get mad. She said that's when they got up right in the window and she could see their eyes, which were solid and black. And she just started panicking. She didn't know what to do. Thankfully, her mom was by the door and hears her talking to someone and hears like these kids. Her mom comes in the room, and as soon as her mom enters the door, she looks over at the window. There's no one there. And she goes, who are you talking to? And she goes, there was like 3 kids. Maybe they were the ones that were here earlier. And she said, her mom said, oh, it's probably just the neighborhood kids like being stupid, so just go back to bed. But she could tell that her mom was definitely concerned. There's a good reason why people close their curtains at night in the Appalachian Mountains. There are things in those woods that are terrifying. And one of those things happened to be the Appalachian wendigo. Now, there was this man named Jim. Jim decided one day that he was going to sell everything he had and buy some acreage of land in the Appalachian Mountains and start this homestead. So Jim finds this good piece of land and he moves there, builds a cabin and several structures. And for a year, his life was amazing. He said one day, though, he gets a knock on his cabin door. And he said he opens the door. On the other side of the door was this older gentleman. And he said the gentleman starts speaking. He said, hey, my name is Fox. I live not too far from here. And I wanted to check on you because I know you're all alone out here. And things can happen to people who are alone in the woods. And Jim was kind of like, why is this guy saying all this and stuff? So he said the guy continued to talk to him, but all he could think about was the fact that this guy Fox looked exactly like his father, who had passed away when he was a young boy. And he said it was just very, very eerie. It was like talking to his father. So he said finally the guy said, you be safe out here. I'll see you later. And he said the way he said it was kind of creepy. So he said this guy, Fox, he just walked away and took off into the woods, and he never seen him again. A couple months after this, he said, one night he was asleep in his bedroom, and he awakes to this sound of scratching. And he said the scratching sounds were coming from his window. And he said when he looked over in the direction towards his window, he sees the shadow appear, and it's almost in the shape of a person. And he said the shadow just moved across the wall, all the way around him to the other side of his bed. And he said the next thing he knows, something was holding him down. He could not move, and he was panicking and freaking out. And then he said, all of a sudden, it was gone. And he got up, and he said, that must have just been a really crazy dream. So he said, this kept happening to him. He kept having this, what he thought at the time was a dream. Well, one day, he said he was out on his land setting up some traps. And he said he happened to notice in the snow there was all of this weird movement. And he said, what is that in the snow? So he goes a little closer, he grabs a tree branch, and he moves the snow over. And he said out popped several rats. And he said that's when he realized these rats were eating a deer carcass. And he said it was just so sickening that he had to start vomiting. And he said as he was bent over vomiting into the snow, he looks up, and there is the guy Fox. And he said the guy was just standing there staring at him. And he's like, hey, what are you doing out here on my property? And he said Fox looked at him and said, you seen the deer? And he said, yeah. And he said, you see, a lot of weird things happen in these woods. And then he said he turned and just walked away. So he said, that was like a really weird encounter. Like, did he have something to do with that deer or whatever? So he said, next couple of days, he really, really kept having these nightmares where he would see the shadowy thing in his room. And then he said this one particular night, he was sitting by the fireplace and he was just contemplating life. And he said all of a sudden, the next thing he knows, he just stood up. He started walking towards the door. He opened the front door of the cabin and he starts walking out into the woods. And he said it was weird. It was like he knew what he was doing, but he couldn't control it. And something was just drawing him into the woods deeper and deeper. So he said finally he stops and he's just surrounded by trees. It's completely dark. And he said the next thing he knows, he hears his father's voice say, son, come here, it's your father. And he said out of the shadows steps that guy Fox again. And he said, it's me, I'm your father, come here, come give your father a hug. And Jim's just kind of like, well, no, you're not my father, my father's not here anymore. And he's like, no, I am your father, like I've been here the whole time, come give me a hug. And he said he just like didn't trust this guy. He thought he was crazy. And he said all of a sudden, this guy's skin began to peel off. And he said that's when he could see this wasn't his father. This wasn't a man. This was this pale, white, skinny creature with sharp teeth, sharp claws, and these bright yellow eyes. And he said this thing said to him, I said, come here now. And the voice had changed. So he said next thing he knows, like he was able to get awareness again. And like he was aware of his situation where he was at. He turns and he just takes off running. He gets back to his cabin. He jumps in his truck and he leaves his cabin and just abandons it. And he said after a couple of weeks, he didn't know what to do. So he went to this Native American man in town that everyone said was a medicine man. And he told him like what had happened and stuff. And he said, this Native American man said to him, what you seen was the wendigo, what my people call the wendigo. And he said, he has chosen you. And the reason he hasn't taken you yet is because he wants you to be as afraid as possible. Because to them, the more fear you have, the better you taste to them. And he will continue to follow you and, you know, harass you until he finally gets you afraid enough that he will take you. So Jim said he decided to sell the cabin and he never went back there again. And he said still to this day, he can hear scratching sometimes at his window and he will see the shadowy figure in his room at night.
Creepy encounters with evidence. So this guy says that it was really close to closing time and him and his 3 friends were in this plaza where they were having a card tournament. So as the plaza is now closing and all the stores are also closing, he said that one of his friends started taking pictures just for fun. Out of nowhere, he explains that he saw his friend get very serious, very quiet, but he didn't tell them anything until they took him home. So when they get to his house is where he confesses that he had taken 2 pictures. 2 pictures of the same little hallway that they just came out of. When he took the first picture, he saw something at the end of the hallway, so he did zoom in and saw that there was a shadow there. In the second picture is when you can actually see more details that there was definitely someone or something there. Now, the crazy thing is that they were the last people in that plaza before they actually closed the doors and locked them, so they knew that they were the only ones in there. So this is the first picture that he took where you could definitely make out that there's something in that hallway. So this is the second picture, and it does say here that they had to edit the lighting just so that you can specifically see that there's definitely somebody there. But what do you guys think?
Hello and good morning. How are you? How am I? I am Wyatt! Dear Colombians, you don't need cocaine when you got that coffee in ya, okay? Cafe Bustelo. I hope I'm saying it right. The coffee in the yellow pack, baby. Woo! I'm ready to run around the world. I'm ready to put some jumper cables on my earlobes. I will spark this whole city. I'm telling you. I am feeling absolutely amazing this morning. Am I glowing? I feel like I'm glowing. And because I feel so good, I'm gonna give you a story time. Yes, I am. Come on, my babies. In 3, 2, 1. Boom, boom is story time. Boom, boom. Paranormal Chicago activity. With Cat G. That's me. And this is Voodoo Hair Grow Oil that I get off the TikTok shop. Y'all, I live by this. I need to re-up. Oh, I did not know I was this. Word of discretion. The coffee is coffeeing and the ADHD is in full effect. Y'all, bear with me. I'm gonna get a little sidetracked every now and then. I know I am. But let's do a recap. Had a battle with Puss and Bitch, who is a were-cat witch, basically a witch who is in a form of a cat / human. Boom. Defeat her and her meowings. Boom. Died from trying to end the flower. Boom. Soul knocked back down into my body because my family is fucking rude. Talking about some go fucking home, Roger. It's not your time to die yet. Me and Phoenix get into a whole battle because this bitch tried to fucking sacrifice me. And then got the nerve to sit up here talking about some, you got a few more extra lives. You would have been all right. Bitch, I don't like this arrangement just like you don't like this motherfucking arrangement. But that don't mean that you go and you sacrifice me. We hear voices coming from a damn mirror. Come to find out it's a very, very powerful, very, very old, very, very rich, very, 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 very bad vampire man. And he the one who is the ringleader behind all this shit. They find out that we find out about them and the whole baby is up. Phoenix and Papa losing their mind. Papa freaking the fuck out a little bit. He a little anxious. Phoenix pacing back and forth because the last thing that we wanted to see was this vampire man. Like, we knew it was going to be other vampires involved, but this man, oh no. Phoenix and Papa is sitting up here rapid fire brainstorming ways on how they think they could get over on this motherfucking vampire man. And I'm just standing there watching both of them lose their shit. And then I start hearing another voice. It's muffled. And I know where it's coming from. It's coming out of Papa's pocket. Miss Evangeline on this goddamn two-way mirror thing again. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard a Jamaican mother go off? Well, now you know what Miss Evangeline sound like. Honey, every other word was bumbleclot. This woman is mad. Papa pulled his motherfucking mirror out his pocket. Miss Evangeline going off. She, you hear me now? Huh? You hear me now, bumbleclot? You mother suck off of mine. You hear me now? And then Papa always got to say something sarcastic and smart to this woman to make her go off even fucking farther. He's sitting up there talking about something. Yep, well, sorry if I was busy fighting off werecats and motherfucking demon ninja bullshit. But you know, go off, honey, go off. Baby, it got quiet. I looked at Phoenix. Phoenix looked at me. We looked over at Papa. He looked down at that damn mirror. She said, what you say? Come again? What you say? I dare you. Dare you say it to me one more time. Say it again. I dare you. You in trouble. She said, wait till you get here. Wait till you get here. He said, you know what? I'm going to take my time. Silence. Papa say, hello? Mama? Silence. Absolute silence. Bitch, I'm scared. Oh, I'm scared. We hear a boom. What the fuck? We hear it again. We turn and we look in the direction of where it's coming from. It's a big ass wooden door right there. I'm talking about some medieval wooden door shit. Like it's in a metal frame and a brick wall. Not even brick. I'm talking about boulders, okay? This motherfucker look like it is made to keep giants out and it is rattling. Bitch, I can't take no more. I can't take no more. I'm tired. I ain't got no more spirit energy left. I ain't got no more human energy left. And now something is cracking the boulder wall around a giant wooden door that's in a metal fucking frame. One more boom, the door goes selling across the damn. Boulder chunks, steel work, every fucking thing, spraying every. Phoenix, hurry up, wrap me in her wings to protect me from the debris that's spraying every damn where. The dust clear, and baby, when I tell you my heart fell to my ass. Miss Evangeline was standing there. She was, oh Lord, she was standing there. Papa said, Evangeline, she said, what you say? Say it again. I dare you. You really pissed her off. Papa pulled his shadows to him, trying to wrap himself up in them. Miss Evangeline is a little bit quicker. Baby, when I tell you a spotlight came out of her hand, she looked like Iron Woman. This man go flying into the damn wall. Miss Evangeline said, oh, I think I heard you loud and clear now. You won't test me again, will you, mine? This man sit up, looked like he done got ran over by a semi-truck, but I can see he finna fix his mouth to say something sarcastic to her again. Why do men do this, bro? Just shut up. Put your ego and your pride away. Shut up. Something that I did not see coming was him actually shutting her up. It's very rare that you can say something that make her go, you got a point. Papa say, if you had the skill to find us here, how come you didn't get here faster in order to help us? You know what? Oh man, you right. Old lady, where you been? Phoebe say, come to think about it, if you could find the mirror in his pocket, then you could have found us at any time and sent help. Why didn't you send help? The mirror is a tracking device at the same time. You, lady. Now she want to be sickly sweet, little old lady. Okay, my babies, listen, there's a good explanation. Holy Mother Oshun said that the Star Child had it handled. I died! And see, this is my my problem with Ocean. This be my problem with Ocean, because if you know what's gonna happen before it happened, you knew that I was gonna die, and you ain't do nothing to help me or warn me before I died so that I lost another life. This day, see, you wonder why we got problems. This why we got beef. This why we got beef. Quick sidetrack. Quick sidetrack. I am about to freak out. I'm about to freak the fuck out, because listen, that rant about Oshu, yeah, that was real. Me and her, we got a love-hate relationship, okay? And I literally stopped for a second and I took a swig of water, and I'm finna start this next segment of this story. And you wanna know what I just seen? Do you see what I just seen? You know what I'm finna freak out about? It's a fucking gray hair. Do you see it? Do you? Let me look at what up? Hey! Why? Oh my. Why? Where did it go? Oh my god. Why are my eyebrows, bro? Why are my eyebrows? I won't talk shit about you no more, woman. I won't. At least I'm gonna try my best not to. Oh my god. Back to the story. Miss Evangeline on her sweet shit talking about something. Well, I have a very safe passage in a wardrobe about 3 rooms down, so let's hurry up and get on going so that we can brainstorm together and come up with an idea on how to deal with this situation. And girl, you still not finna get past the fact that you could have found us a long time ago and sent us some fucking help. We go through the wardrobe, get back to Miss Evangeline's house, and the whole coven is there. First thing Lily say to me is, you sure do get yourself into a lot of trouble. Bitch! You the reason why I got into the damn trouble. If you did not come invading my morning and my private space, my private time, I wouldn't be going through none of this. Whatever spell they had working could have kept on working. I could have stayed blissfully ignorant to the whole damn thing. Ain't had to been bothered with none of it. Her mother gonna chime in and say, yeah, and then you and all the rest of the regular ass humans would have woke up dead. Touche. Now what we finna do, y'all? Honey, the plan is y'all gonna have to come back for the next part, because I ran out of time.
Might have known the story of real-life boogeyman.
Weird spooky story time, and there was a little man dancing around in her room in the middle of the night. I haven't shared this story with many people because skeptics are quick to write off experiences like mine. Around 7 years ago, when I was staying at my dad's house, I woke up in the middle of the night to see what I now believe was a leprechaun. I know that sounds absolutely ridiculous, but this experience was so creepy it still gives me chills to this day. I grew up in my dad's house, and it's always felt like home. It doesn't have any creepy vibes or a history of paranormal activity. It's just a normal house. I was sleeping in my bedroom, and I woke up facing the left side of the room. In the space about 1.5 meters in front of me, I saw this small man, maybe 3 feet tall, dancing in a circle. Since I had just woken up, my eyes weren't fully adjusted. I could only make out the outline of this thing and couldn't see any facial features. I hope this makes sense, but it wasn't a shadowy being. It was a solid mass, as real as a person standing in the room. He was wearing a top hat and dancing was really strange. The dancing was really strange. It's hard to describe. The only way I can explain it is that he was hunched over, doing an exaggerated tiptoeing motion, almost prancing, almost mocking. I watched it dance for around 10 seconds. That doesn't sound like a long time, but it was long enough for me to properly wake up and wonder what on earth I was looking at. I was shocked, frozen, thinking this can't be real. Then suddenly it stopped dead in its tracks. It seemed to turn toward me, and it began coming at me, fast. I screamed and flipped to the other side of the bed to turn the light on. When I looked back to where it had been, it was gone. Needless to say, I kept the light on and didn't go back to sleep until it was fully light outside and my dad was awake. For a long time, I described this as a creepy small man dancing around in my room in a top hat. It wasn't until years later when I told my boyfriend about it, he said, "That sounds like a leprechaun," and something clicked. In terms of a rational explanation, I guess it could have been a waking hallucination, or maybe some kind of dream spillover. but I've had several instances throughout my life of waking up and seeing apparitions. This experience, along with another, felt different. It was brief, it wasn't a quick flash. I had time to watch it, to take it in. I was fully awake by the time it rushed toward me. I struggle to explain it away, and it still freaks me out whenever I think about it. Do you think it was just another hallucination? I like how she tries to find logic behind it, where she's like, like, I understand that this could be some kind of weird dream state, but I know what the dream states feel like. This was just too solid and it felt too real. And then, the fact that she didn't even think like this could be a leprechaun until someone said it. And then she was like, wait a minute. Like, all she knew was this was a weird little man dancing around in my room. I don't know. I wonder, it kind of reminds me of like a duende a little bit too. Somebody had told me a story once when I was younger about a duende who leapt at them like that when they woke up. So I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, or if you've ever had a strange experience like this, send it my way.
Let's talk about one of the most haunted locations in Santa Clarita. And I'm not even talking about an abandoned building in the middle of nowhere. I'm talking about a full-fledged operating tattoo and piercing business, also known as Artifact Tattoo. Now, what was so unique about this property is not only its interesting entity that likes to make himself known, but also its dark past. And if you want to learn a little more about that, then go back and watch my part 1. After many interviews with Diego and his coworkers pictured right here, Diego has mentioned there's one main entity that has definitely made himself known, and that is Louis, who happened to be the former owner of the bar that once stood on that property. And according to multiple accounts, he never really left. Okay, but how does one even begin to prove something like that? And how do we know that it's actually Louis? In my experience of paranormal investigations, you always go based off of firsthand accounts, especially from the people who live it and the people who work in there day in and day out. Here are some of the workers' stories and firsthand accounts for you guys to hear.
Those turn off the lights, and I'd have to come here, hit that, run over, and then shut off the lights.
Oh, yeah.
Run out.
The alarm system used to be different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Several times I would do that, and I don't remember who said about the back door. That thing would always, and it was always when I closed by myself. And it was always that back door.
Years ago, and the piercing room was different. It had like a built-in countertop and all this. There's a piece of tempered glass on that countertop. I was out front here, and I heard a loud pop. And I turned around and said, what was that? And I see Jesse walking out of the piercing room with his gloves on. He's like, I don't know what just happened. That glass just shattered.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, what? So it's tempered glass. So all the bits were shattered all over the counter on the floor.
I was running it, I was here by myself, and I was running the ghost chat, and it said, where's Emery? And that's her maiden name.
Wow. No, that's my married name. I don't know
married name. It's not her maiden name.
And Emery is like a really not a common name.
No, yeah, and she had been out for like a month because she was visiting family.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so he's asking where I was.
He's smart and he shows us.
No, he's very intelligent.
Okay, but post-mortem, what happened after the investigation? Based on Intuitive Tawny's readings of the location, many EVP sessions, along with Dead Bell sessions, we ended up cracking a beer with him and shooting the shit. And we even captured this little weird anomaly during our session with the Dead Bell. And then something happened. The women of the shop took control of the investigation. Louis was growing a little quiet. We wanted to chat with him a little more, so the girls ended up flashing him.
Whoa.
Whoa. See, Louis, this is why we're here.
Yeah. But that wasn't all. Something came to mind. It's just that Louis wanted to be remembered, and he wanted something tangible that he could call his own. In my head, I kept on seeing the word ofrenda, like an altar. So I instructed Diego to construct him an altar, turn on the voice chat box, let him come through and see what happened. And boy, did Louis definitely request a lot of things, including a pack of nudie cards, some Marble Reds, and a jelly donut. But that's the thing that I love doing what I do, is just finding a solution. Ever since the altar actually was built, Louis has calmed down tremendously. Now recently, I went and got some ink over there at that shop, and the feeling and the vibe there was very content. So in conclusion, is Artifact Tattoo haunted? Absolutely. And is Louis still there?
100%. Or maybe you should go over there, get a piercing, get some ink, and find out for yourself. Like and comment if you want to see more, and always remember to stay haunted and weird.
In honor of Women's History Month, I'm doing 31 Days of Women in Horror. Today, we're talking about one of the most beloved scream queens in horror history, Heather Langenkamp. In 1984, she introduced audiences to Nancy Thompson in Nightmare on Elm Street. Nancy became one of the strongest and smartest final girls in horror history, facing Dream Stalker Freddy Krueger. In Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors, she came back as a mentor to the newest victims. In 1989, she played in Wes Craven's Shocker, even though it was just a brief role. Decades later, she helped celebrate the legacy by narrating the documentary Never Sleep Again. Heather has continued in her horror journey. Here she's playing Dorothy in The Butterfly Room, and she also played in Hellraiser and in Hellraiser Judgment. 2018, she played in Unholy Blood, Fiona in Portal in 2019. In 2022, she played in The Midnight Club by Mike Flanagan. Then in 2024, she played in the film Little Bites. Nancy Thompson remains one of the largest final girls in horror history, and Heather Langenkamp helped define what a scream queen can be. Come back tomorrow for my 31 Days of Women in Horror for Women's History Month.
Spooky story time, and you guys, I'm scared. So I've recently been coming across a lot of mermaid videos for some weird reason, and I found out something very creepy today. This is Cantinflas, and he is a Mexican actor and comedian, very funny man, and I learned today that he was weirdly obsessed with mermaids. Like, passionately obsessed, like in love with them. So at a specific stage of his life, he was already loaded, he had a lot of money, and he built this huge mansion right by an ocean. Allegedly, he contacted someone who somehow knew where to find these mermaids, and this man told Cantinflas to build this very huge statue that looked exactly like him and put it right by the ocean. That way the mermaids can see him and try to approach. Fast forward, he was always having and hosting parties at his huge beach mansion, and allegedly there's a woman that attended one of his parties and said that he had this very huge, deep pool. So allegedly, Cantinflas takes this woman downstairs, and you can see the inside of this pool, and there was cages, and she said that he had some really freaky and weird looking fish. And she swears up and down that one of these fish things had a nose and had eyes and had hair. So allegedly, this man had a mermaid trapped and caged in one of his pools in one of his houses. It wasn't an obsession as of like, oh, I am obsessed with this movie, let me collect everything. And no, this was like a love obsession. Like, he was in love with these mermaids. Isn't that weird? Like, these people have so much money. Like, what are they hiding from us? What else are they obsessed with? Spooky!
Get ready with me while I tell you guys this ghost story. This story was sent into my email, and if you have any ghost stories, scary stories, or paranormal encounters that you want to share, you can send them to the email in my bio. I don't normally do my get ready with me's inside of what I so lovingly call my hobbit hole, but unfortunately I have a sick little baby just on the other side of this wall. And she has taken over my bed, so I'm not able to be in there. So we will use this as the multi-purpose room today. One night in the middle of summer, something happened that I still can't explain. At the time, I was lying in bed, talking on the phone with my boyfriend. It was late, and the house was quiet. Outside my bedroom window, the night felt completely still, until I suddenly heard footsteps right outside my bedroom wall. I've mentioned this before, but anytime I'm reading these, it's playing in my head like as if I were watching a scary movie. So just thinking about it being like a warm summer night, like maybe your window's open, the breeze is blowing in, you're on the phone with your boyfriend, you got like your little feet up in the bed, and then you hear the footsteps. Oh no, not faint footsteps either. They sounded deliberate, slow, like someone was walking back and forth along the side of the house. I paused mid-conversation and looked out my window, expecting to see someone in the yard, but there was nothing there, just darkness and the faint outline of the trees behind our property. The footsteps stopped. I told my boyfriend what I heard, and we both brushed it off at first. Maybe it was an animal, maybe the house was settling, But a moment later, the footsteps started again. This time, I decided to check our security cameras. I left my phone in my bedroom while I went to the living room where the monitor was. I checked every camera angle we had pointed at the yard, and there was nothing. No person, no animal, no movement at all. Confused, I went back to my room and picked up my phone again, and my boyfriend sounded unsettled. While I had been gone, he said he heard something through the phone. Oh no! Scratching and light tapping right where my bedroom wall was. He thought that I had come back and I was messing with him, but when he realized I was still in the other room, it freaked him out. I don't like this. I checked outside one more time, scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. And again, I couldn't find anything. After that night, neither of us really talked about it again, but it didn't stop there. A few days later, my best friend came over to stay the night. It was one of those hot summer nights where the air still feels warm even after midnight. Around 12 or 1 a.m., we decided to go swimming in my pool. Again, the scary movie is playing in my head. I don't like this. At first, everything felt normal. We were just talking and laughing while sitting in the pool ladder with our feet in the water. And then suddenly, I felt something brush against my shoulder. It was quick, like something or someone had lightly dragged their fingers across it. I turned around immediately, but no one was there. The pool lights illuminated the water clearly. There was nothing behind me. My friend noticed my reaction right away and asked what was wrong. As soon as I told her, we both felt the mood change instantly. The air got heavy. We felt like we were all of a sudden being watched. Neither of us said it out loud, but we both wanted to get out of the pool. Just as we started climbing out, we heard something that made our blood run cold. A scream. It came from the mountains behind my house. The property backs up against a large mountain covered in dense trees, and the sound echoed through them. The scream sounded human, but also distorted somehow. It was impossible to tell if it was a man or a woman. It was long and loud and unnatural. Without even needing to look at each other, we turned around and ran inside. We locked the door behind us and didn't go back outside until morning. Weeks passed and things seemed normal again. Then one evening near the end of summer, my dad was outside working on a car in the driveway around dusk. Mountains behind our house were already fading into darkness. While he was working, he suddenly heard footsteps coming from somewhere up on the mountain. He looked toward the tree line, but couldn't see anything moving between the trees. Eventually, he went back to what he was doing and didn't think much more about it. Later that night, around 9:30 p.m., our neighbors, who are also close family friends, let their dog outside in their backyard, and that's when they heard it. Another scream coming from the mountains. But this time, it sounded exactly like me. My dad's friend's wife panicked and ran straight to their back door, yelling toward our house and asking if I was okay. My dad immediately came inside to check on me, but I had been in the house the entire time. What do you mean? The last strange incident happened a few weeks later, toward the end of fall. I was lying in bed one night with my cat curled up beside me when I heard it again. Those same footsteps outside my bedroom wall. Slow, steady, back and forth. This time I didn't even look outside. I just lay there listening, trying to convince myself nothing was wrong. Then suddenly my cat shot upright. The animals always know. I will say it over and over and over again. His ears flattened, his fur puffed up, and he started hissing and meowing louder than I've ever heard before. He was staring directly at the wall where the footsteps were coming from. I tried to calm him down, but he wouldn't stop. He just kept hissing at the wall. And then as suddenly as it started, the footsteps stopped. The house went completely silent. The cat slowly relaxed and lay back down like nothing had happened. Since that night, we've never heard the footsteps again, and we've never heard the screaming from the mountains either. But sometimes when the house is quiet at night, I still think about whatever was walking outside my bedroom wall and why it sounded so much like me.
The woman needs no introduction, especially on this app. Ash Trevino has earned herself the nickname Inmate Hopper, and as of earlier this month, she's been arrested for the second time in just 3 months. Let's talk about it. Now 37-year-old Ash Trevino became known to the world for being problematic, really. She started her TikTok account back in 2019, and she's commonly referred to as an inmate hopper because one of her favorite things to do was date inmates and often introduce them to her children, 2 daughters, who the vast majority of the internet grew to have real concerns about, because if one thing is clear about Ash Trevino is that at least in 2024-2025, her children were last on her list of priorities, I would say. Her second favorite thing to do was go on TikTok lives while being on the phone with her incarcerated boyfriends plural, and racking in dollars and dollars and dollars from her followers. She was only 19 years old when she married her high school sweetheart back in 2008. They have 2 daughters together who are now 14 and 17 years old, but that marriage didn't last long. It eventually ended in divorce around 2015 with allegations of infidelity surfacing from Ashley's side. As a newly single mother of 2 children, Ash Trevino created an Instagram account back in 2015. At the time, the content was normal, wholesome even. She would post pictures of her daughters, nails, selfies, pictures of whatever she was doing, little bits and pieces from her everyday life in Texas. But then something shifted, and at some point in the following years, Ashley Trevino began developing romantic connections with men who were in prison for committing horrible crimes. Ash Trevino gets into a relationship with inmate Isaiah Gonzalez. In 2019, she posted on Instagram that she's engaged, starting off the post by saying, quote, "For those of y'all that know, y'all know, LOL, and for those who don't, now y'all do," end quote. Her 2 daughters at that point would have been in 2nd and 5th grade, and their lives were too very much so intertwined with Isaiah's life because Ashley would take them to visit him in prison. And why is he in prison, you may be wondering? Well, he was serving a 45-year sentence for his role in a 2010 robbery and murder of Mohammed Hashemi, a gas station owner in Texas. Isaiah, along with 2 other men, ambushed Mohammed as he was driving to the bank to make a cash deposit after a store employee tipped them off about which way he was going and how much money he was carrying on him. Isaiah showed up with a weapon and pointed it directly to Mohammed through a car window, and when one of the other 2 men fired their weapon, Isaiah then climbed into the car that Mohammed was in with his body still in the driver's seat, drove to a nearby location, and helped drag his body into the woods and dispose of it. He then took an envelope of cash from Mohammed's vehicle, and then the group spent the next day bragging about what they had done and spending the money that they had stolen. Prosecutors in their findings for his case wrote, quote, "Given the defendant's brutal course of conduct and disregard for human life, the defendant clearly presents a substantial likelihood of danger to the entire community," end quote. Ashley Trevino fell in love with him anyway. She introduced him to her daughters, took them to visit him in prison, encouraging the girls to call him daddy. She talked about him, their relationship and their engagement on social media, explaining to her followers how the relationship came to be. She would say these stories on live. And Ash Trevino is an open book, okay? She'll fill you in. That's part of the reason why she went so viral, is because nothing was off limits when it came to what she talked about and discussed while she was on live streams. The relationship with Isaiah eventually fell apart. He filed for divorce while still in prison, and Ashley, according to the people who followed the situation closely, resisted signing the papers. She did not want to sign the papers because she did not want to pay the filing fees. His sister ultimately had to serve her the papers in person. His sister has also gone on social media to talk about Isaiah and Ashley and about how the reason to the relationship falling apart was a result of Ashley getting with his best friend. She also mentioned her stealing his stimulus checks and opening up a credit card in his name. Isaiah also later asked Ashley to cover up the tattoo that she had gotten with his name. But listening to what him and his sister had to say wasn't really a priority for her at the time because she had already moved on to a different man. On April 26th of 2022, she married No Trevino. I've heard his name be pronounced as No and Noe, so correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the man whose last name she took and has kept even though that relationship has also ended. No Trevino was serving 25 years in prison for murdering a man named Louis Maston outside of a nightclub in 2015. So now there's a pattern. 2 husbands, both convicted murderers, both still incarcerated, and Ash Trevino is in the middle of everything, posting all about it on TikTok. And some people would say that being a prison wife to 2 inmates in that short amount of time at least is already a little bit out there, but 2 doesn't even come close to the number of inmates Ash Trevino has been involved with. She's acknowledged to dating between 26 and 30 incarcerated men over the years. She's also been more than open about the fact that some of them have been recommended to her by other fellow inmates, saying that inmates pass around her contact information inside a prison. Her name, by various accounts, have become well known in Texas correctional facilities. And in the middle of it all, her followers were just growing more and more and more
more, all watching her very much so messy love life unfold. But in his case, there wasn't only one victim, there were two, a 13-year-old girl and a 19-year-old girl. Ash Trevino did not just date this man, she showed him off. She went on TikTok Live, told her audience with full confidence that he was innocent, that he did not do what he was convicted of, and if you thought otherwise, you were silly and wrong. She used her platform with thousands of people watching to talk to Francisco on speakerphone and read comments out loud to him saying, quote, "Oh my God, they said RIP to those who lost their lives, ha ha ha." She's cracking up. And again, with this relationship, her two daughters are just caught up in the middle of it, not only watching it, but also experiencing it. Her daughters, who were just little girls when this all started, are now growing up in the middle of everything with an audience from the internet to watch it. To no one's surprise, throughout the drama surrounding her relationships, the conversation that dominated Ash Trevino's comment sections, the one that made viewers genuinely uncomfortable and even scared, was about her daughters. Because Ash Trevino frequently featured both of her girls in her content, and put aside the inmate hopper part of her and the fact that she was introducing men who had been convicted of murder to her daughters as father figures, her parenting, apart from that, people felt was a whole issue in itself. In one live stream that went viral, Ashley said to all of her followers that were watching, quote, "My kids have always been with me, and a lot of y'all spread rumors and say that CPS took my kids away from me." Then in the same breath, she added, quote, "CPS never took my kids. Yes, I've had like 20 CPS cases against me. 20 cases, 2-0, and it just rolled off her tongue in a live stream. She could not have said it more casually if she tried. But CPS cases in Texas are confidential by law, so the allegations that were surfacing came directly from things that either she said on live or that people saw through her videos while she was on live. For example, she was accused in one viral clip of putting her hands on her daughter out of jealousy because her daughter was getting more attention from her father than Ashley was from her now ex-husband. She said that she felt like he loved their daughter more than he loved her when they were all living together as a family before they separated, and because of that, she would treat her daughter terribly because she was jealous of her. She would pull her hair and things like that, specifically stating that she would take her anger out on her daughter. Through her live streams, people also saw Ashley once leave her daughters in a house that wasn't theirs by themselves while she went out and had a fun night. People saw that Ashley would get behind the wheel of a car to drive after a night out when she absolutely should not have been driving. They criticized the food that she was feeding her children because she never really fed them real meals. She only fed them snacks. They pointed out how she was so slow to show concern about her daughters if they were sick or needed money for something, but she had absolutely no problem buying all these designer things for herself. Ashley would also make judgy comments to her daughters about their looks while she was on live, like things they should do to improve their looks. For example, she was telling one of her daughters that she really needed to get lip filler. She called them names, called them slurs to her own daughters. The sleeping arrangements were also a point of conversation because the two daughters were sharing an air mattress while Ashley was shopping around for herself like she had no budget. And it goes without saying that she also spoke about her daughter's private matters on live, even after they would ask her not to talk about a specific thing, such as the loss of their biological father. The girls did not want to talk about that in front of the entire internet, rightfully so, but Ashley would consistently bring it up and talk about how they were grieving. But perhaps one of the most jaw-dropping moments came from when she brought her daughters along for her drama with a 19-year-old TikToker named Santos. Ash Trevino, then 36 years old, began a public relationship with Santos in late 2024, early 2025, going on live talking about how he had seen her new and she had seen his area. The age gap alone, 17 years, of course drew immediate criticism, and the fact that she appeared to behave flirtatiously with him in front of her daughters made it only worse. One detail that circulated widely online was the claim that her own daughter had expressed interest in Santos first and that Ash Trevino pursued him anyway. Santos ended up visiting Ash Trevino at her house in person, where her daughters also were, and they made all kinds of uncomfortable, weird, touchy, flirty videos together, alluding to the fact that they were obviously more than friends. Need I remind you, he was 19 years old, she was 36 years old. Ash Trevino's controversies reached a new peak in late 2025 when on December 17th, she was arrested in Venus, Texas on 2 felony warrants, healthcare fraud, and securing a document by deception stemmed from alleged Medicaid fraud dating back to 2019. She was bonded out the next morning for $15,000 and immediately went on Instagram Live, laughing, dancing, and talking about her mugshot. But of course, the drama did not end there. In February of 2026, prosecutors moved to revoke her bond after she posted photos of herself partying at a birthday party, which I guess was a violation of her release conditions. She was rearrested on March 4th, released the same day, and her bond bond doubled to $25,000 with an ankle monitor and a strict curfew added. As of March 2026, the case remains active, with potential exposure of 4 years in a state jail and $20,000 in fines. And Ash Trevino is still posting. It looks like she's also in a new relationship, and I know there's a lot of drama within that. And as far as her daughters, it seems like they're still within the family, occasionally appearing on her live streams as well, but it seems like the girl's grandmother has played a really big part in taking care of them. If you guys are familiar with this, I feel like you're gonna watch this video and be like, that did not even cover half of her story, because there's just so much drama with every single person that she's involved with, which are a lot. There's a whole storyline like for each relationship that she has. So honestly, we could be here for 3 hours, but that's it for me today. Let me know your thoughts. I'm so curious to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you for spending time with me today. I hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. Make somebody happy, and I will see you in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.
This disturbing movie was made so well that the producer was actually arrested upon its premiere. The film's producer and director Rogero Deodato had an idea to make a found footage film about an anthropologist who leads a rescue mission into the Amazon rainforest to find a missing American film crew. This film crew was there documenting indigenous tribes that practice cannibalism. Well, the crew had mysteriously disappeared, and in their place, footage capturing their horrific deaths was left behind. But the extreme violence and gore shown in the movie prompted authorities to arrest Deodato in Italy shortly after the 1980 release of his movie Cannibal Holocaust. Not only was the film seized and subsequently banned in most countries around the world because authorities genuinely thought that they had stumbled upon a snuff film, but Deodato was charged with murder. This seemed even more likely to be the case since the actors in the film were nowhere to be found. In order to prove his innocence, Deodato was forced to bring the actors into court, revealing that they were in fact still alive and well, but had signed contracts agreeing to stay out of the public eye for a year to promote the found footage aspect of the film. And because the special effects were so good for that time, he and his camera crew were also forced to demonstrate how they accomplished such graphic scenes in court. Because they were able to do so, Deodato was cleared of the murder charge, but was instead convicted of obscenity, and the film continued to be banned in several countries, despite proving that it was all make-believe.